Breaking news from deep space. At 2:14 a.m. Universal Time this morning, observatories across 3 continents simultaneously detected something that should not exist. The interstellar object we've been tracking for months, 3I Atlas, just violated one of the most fundamental principles in physics. Not bent it, not challenged it, violated it completely. And what happened in the 17 minutes that followed has left the world's leading astrophysicists in a state I can only describe as controlled panic. Today, the impossible just happened. And I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm talking about an event that contradicts the laws of thermodynamics, the principles of conservation of energy, and the very foundation of how we understand matter and motion in this universe. If you want to stay updated on what may be the most significant cosmic event of our lifetime, hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will rewrite every textbook on planetary science and potentially change our understanding of reality itself. The story begins not this morning, but 72 hours ago, when something started going wrong with our models. The European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope Array in Chile's Atacama Desert was the first to notice the discrepancy. Dr. Helena Vasquez, lead astronomer on the 3I Atlas observation team, was reviewing routine spectroscopic data when she spotted an anomaly in the object's thermal signature. The readings showed 3I Atlas was cooling, but not in the way objects cool in space. Natural cooling follows an exponential decay curve, predictable and governed by the Stefan-Boltzmann law. This was different. The temperature was dropping in discrete steps, each exactly 47.3 Kelvin apart, as if someone was turning down a cosmic thermostat one click at a time. Vasquez immediately flagged the data for verification. Within 6 hours, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope confirmed the pattern. Then the James Webb Space Telescope. Then the Atacama Large Millimeter Array. Every instrument, every wavelength, every angle of observation showed the same impossible result. 3I Atlas was losing thermal energy in quantized steps that violated every principle of continuous thermodynamic processes we've established over 2 centuries of physics. But that was just the beginning. 48 hours before this morning's event, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics convened an emergency virtual conference. 37 of the world's top astrophysicists, quantum theorists, and cosmologists gathered in a classified video call. I've spoken with 3 people who were in that meeting, and they all described the same atmosphere. Confusion giving way to something darker. One of them, Dr. Marcus Chen from Caltech's Infrared Processing and Analysis Center, told me he'd never seen his colleagues so rattled. That should be impossible. The quantum vacuum, the lowest energy state of space, does have fluctuating energy fields, but harvesting that energy in any measurable quantity requires technology so far beyond our current capabilities that most physicists consider it purely theoretical. Yet here was 3I Atlas, an object we'd assumed was a natural celestial body, apparently doing exactly that at a rate of approximately 10 to the 18th watts. For context, that's roughly equivalent to the entire power output of human civilization, sustained continuously, drawn from literally nothing. The models couldn't explain it. Gravitational interactions, insufficient by 7 orders of magnitude. Solar radiation pressure. We were talking about an object that had already passed beyond Neptune's orbit, where solar influence is negligible. Radioactive decay? The energy signatures were all wrong, and the quantity was absurd. Every natural explanation failed catastrophically. 24 hours before the event, things escalated. 42 gigahertz. That's the hydrogen line frequency, the most fundamental resonance in the universe, and the frequency that SETI programs have monitored for decades because any advanced civilization would know we'd recognize it. One pulse could be natural, statistical noise, a cosmic coincidence, except it repeated. Exactly 14 hours later, another pulse, same frequency, same duration, same intensity. Then another 14 hours after that, 003 seconds across multiple repetitions. Nature doesn't work with that kind of precision. Pulsars have variations. Magnetars drift. Even atomic clocks show some statistical jitter. This had none. It was metronomic, deliberate, controlled. No public statements, no press releases. Just a sudden, coordinated observation campaign involving every major space telescope and ground-based observatory capable of tracking 3I Atlas. The International Astronomical Union issued a priority alert classified under their most urgent protocol, a designation typically reserved for potentially hazardous near-Earth asteroids or gamma-ray burst precursors. This morning, 3I Atlas broke physics. The first alert came from the Canary Islands. where the Gran Telescopio Canarias was conducting high-resolution spectroscopy. The duty astronomer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, watched his screen flood with error messages as the spectroscopic software crashed. When he rebooted and looked at the raw data stream, he didn't believe what he was seeing. The object's spectral lines, the fingerprints of its chemical composition, were shifting. Not red-shifting from motion, but transforming. Elements that had been dominant in the spectrum were disappearing while new ones appeared, in ratios that made no chemical sense. Within minutes, confirmation came from Kitt Peak Observatory in Arizona, then from the South African Astronomical Observatory, then from telescopes in India and Japan, all seeing the same thing. 3I Atlas was changing its fundamental composition in real time. But it gets worse. In 17 minutes after the initial detection, 3I Atlas emitted a burst of energy across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves through visible light into gamma rays, with a total power output that briefly exceeded the luminosity of a small star. 7 seconds. When it faded, every telescope pointed at the object's position sent back the same impossible data. 3I Atlas's mass had increased by approximately 340,000 metric tons. It had gained mass from nothing. In clear, unmistakable violation of the conservation of mass energy, the bedrock principle that says matter and energy in a closed system cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. The scientific community is in chaos right now. I've received messages from colleagues who are genuinely frightened, not of alien invasion or cosmic catastrophe, but of something more fundamental, the realization that our physics might be incomplete in ways we never imagined. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo at MIT's Kavli Institute told me this morning, if 3I Atlas can do what the data says it's doing, then we don't understand the universe at all. Let me break down why this is so terrifying from a physics perspective. The conservation laws, conservation of energy, mass, momentum, angular momentum, aren't just useful principles. They're consequences of the fundamental symmetries of space-time itself. Emmy Noether proved over a century ago that every conservation law corresponds to a symmetry in the universe. Conservation of energy comes from time symmetry, conservation of momentum from space symmetry. These aren't arbitrary rules we made up. They're woven into the fabric of reality. If 3I Atlas is genuinely violating conservation of mass energy, it means one of three things, and all of them are revolutionary. First possibility, our observations are wrong, which seems increasingly unlikely given the sheer number of independent confirmations from different instruments using different detection methods. Second possibility, there's a natural phenomenon we don't understand that only becomes apparent under exotic conditions. Conditions that 3I Atlas somehow creates or exists within. Third possibility, this is not a natural object. The third option is what nobody wants to say out loud, but I'm seeing it in the encrypted communications between observatories, in the sudden involvement of defense departments, in the way certain government agencies have gone from passive monitoring to active coordination. 6 hours after the mass gain event, the analysis teams at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory completed a detailed reconstruction of 3I Atlas's energy budget. The numbers are stunning. To create 340,000 metric tons of matter from energy, using Einstein's famous equation EXmc2, you would need approximately 3 × 10⁻²2 joules. That's the energy equivalent of 7 million thermonuclear weapons. 7 seconds, with no apparent energy source, no fuel consumption, no reaction mass ejection. Nothing. It simply reached into the quantum vacuum and pulled matter into existence. Dr. Robert Zhang at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study has been running simulations non-stop since the event. His team is exploring whether 3I Atlas might be accessing energy from higher dimensional spaces, theoretical constructs in string theory, where additional spatial dimensions might exist beyond our perceivable 3. In these models, what looks like creation of energy in our 3D space could actually be extraction from a higher dimensional substrate. It's elegant math, but it requires physics that we've never observed, can't test, and don't know how to harness. The most disturbing aspect, Zhang told me, isn't that we can't explain it. It's that 3I Atlas seems to be doing it intentionally. The timing, the precision, the specific frequency of those radio pulses, this looks less like a natural phenomenon and more like a demonstration. A demonstration. The word hung in the air when he said it, heavy with implication. 11 hours after the mass gain event, 3I Atlas did something new. The object began to accelerate. Not from any visible propulsion, no exhaust plume, no radiation pressure, nothing. It simply started moving faster, increasing its velocity at a steady 0.3 meters per second squared. That doesn't sound like much until you calculate what it means for something with 3I Atlas's mass. The force required is enormous, and it's coming from nowhere. More precisely, it's coming from everywhere. Multiple observatories using interferometry techniques determined that the force isn't being applied to one part of the object. The entire mass is accelerating uniformly, as if 3I Atlas has somehow negated inertia itself, or is manipulating the structure of space-time in its immediate vicinity. The European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft, which maps stellar positions with incredible precision, detected something else, a minute gravitational anomaly in 3I Atlas's wake. Space itself seems slightly distorted along the object's trajectory, like a ship leaving ripples in water, except these ripples are in the fabric of